Ooh, what's up, everyone? It is your boy, Shaman Gabriel. It's really nice to connect with you. Today, I have a very, very interesting stream, and I put a lot of time and energy into creating this one. So we have a lot on the docket. I want to get straight into it, but before I start, I just want to give a brief introduction about who I am. My medicine is the mushroom. And before I woke up to everything around me, I was missing something deep in my life, a deep understanding, a deep experience. And nothing gave that to me. I traveled the world to learn meditation, to learn yoga, to train my mind with hypnotherapy. I've worked with all the modalities. And what I found is that there's only one thing that spoke to me. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that very literally. And the speaking of this mushroom opened my eyes to a lot of what this reality actually is. And I just wanted to bring you this stream so I can introduce you to some of the people that helped awaken my eyes and some of the words that moved me to experience a deeper mystery. So cheers. If you guys know, you know. I have the medicine in my system. And I want to thank you guys first for just being here. Everyone who joins, everyone who receives this message, I pray that it falls on fertile ears, that the seeds will be planted, and that the remembering of who you really are will be activated. And this stream is to raise the question of what is the mushroom really? Because we can be explained and told what it is through a program, letting us know that it's just chemicals in the mind that make us experience certain things and that it's really just a drug. But there's something much deeper to this. And to begin, I'd like to introduce you to Terence McKenna. And there's no one better to introduce him than Timothy Leary. So I don't claim to own any of this content. All this content is from We Plants or Happy Plants. I recommend you go check out that YouTube channel. I'll put links inside the description. And a Internet Archive movie that's definitely copyrighted. So that's why I want to make it very clear that I own none of this. And if at any point this stream turns off, that's why. But I'll be back and definitely give you guys the full message. So let's get into it.
An old friend of all of ours, so I'd like you all to welcome Timothy Leary. Yeah. I, for one, am overjoyed to be here. This is one of those special evenings that we will all treasure. Terence McKenna means a great deal to me. I would say he's one of the 5 or 6 most important people on the planet. I can't even think of any others. Short-term memory loss, but Terence and I keep meeting in the most wonderful, mythic, adventurous places. I was doing a wild tour through Germany about a year ago. We came to Heidelberg, and we were being guested by some people that came right out of Hermann Hesse. I mean, wizards and gnomes and, that sort of thing. Heidelberg. And there was Terence McKenna, and it was just so perfectly Hesse, Journey to the East. Yeah, So we meet again here tonight. I was talking to Terence backstage before we began, and we both agree that what he will be saying tonight has been said over and over again at all those high moments in human history when those who have gone within and understood about the brain and the inner treasures, we all come back and pretty much say the same thing. The problem is, though, that once you say it, you can't go on saying it and saying it and saying it. And when Terence came along a few years ago and was saying what I'd been trying to say, but naturally better, upgraded, up to date, I was so overwhelmed with gratitude, and I publicly thank you for that, Terence. By the way, the role that Terence is playing right now is one that takes not only vision, but it also takes fucking courage. We were saying backstage that Terence and I are a small group of philosophers who make our living not in the ivory tower, if you call it living, but just speaking it, chanting it, raving it, ranting it, and no one has ever done it with more poetry and elegance than the speaker tonight. I'm going to say one more thing, and then we will have what we've all been waiting for. Terence reminds us that all human wisdom, all energy comes from our beloved synergetic partners, the vegetable queendom. It all comes from the plants. Now, round of applause to the vegetables. Now, we all know that the human body, we have to have food. It comes from vegetables. We have used vegetables over the years, the essence of vegetables in the form of wood to develop fire, gas, oil, and so forth. But what we forget and what we look to Terence for tonight is to be reminded that plants have given us an even more important gift. They give us the gift of vision. They give us the illumination. And throughout human history, there are the Eves and the Pandoras. Usually it's a woman who takes this wonderful vegetable and gives it to humanity and says, be illuminated. And now, for our illumination and our pleasure, please join me in welcoming Terence McKenna. Good job.
Well, I want to thank Tim. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm sure I know I wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for Tim Leary. He was the pathfinder. He cut the way through the woods. He gave us all permission to be very much the people that we are tonight. And it's wonderful that one Irishman can hand it on to another and that we can keep it in the bardic tradition.
All right.
People who have never taken hallucinogenic drugs but have some mild interest in it, or just in the course of generally educating yourself about reality, I think people who have never taken psychedelics think that it's sort of like dreaming while you're awake, or geometric patterns, colors. They always say, the colors, malarkey, the colors, forget the colors. It is not like that. The psychedelic experiences at effective doses, not piddling doses, effective doses, are visionary scenarios. They are three-dimensional unfoldments of information that is extraordinarily complex, architectonically connected, and ordered. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what is unique to psilocybin What is unique to psilocybin is that overlaid over what I just described,
what is it?
Is, big surprise, a voice. A voice. Everybody knows this who has to do with this stuff.
Absolutely.
Gordon Wasson, Richard Schultes, Albert Hoffman. The giants know that this stuff is animate. This is not a drug. It's something which is disguising itself as a drug in order not to spread alarm. Ooh. There is a voice which speaks to you in the language of your homeland, Amen. Whether that be Mazatecan or English. And the voice surprises you. In other words, you cannot anticipate it. Now, of course, at this point, though I don't imagine many of them have forced their way in here, the psychological school will come forward and say, well, it's a voice typical of mental aberration, symptom 1 of schizophrenia, a voice. Yes, we are not naive. We went to the same schools you did, thank you. If we are, in fact, being penetrated by a non-human intelligence.
Ooh, pause. We're gonna go deep.
That presumably somehow, perhaps not physically, but perhaps physically, can cross from star to star, then we are dealing with something vastly more sophisticated than ourselves. That's just given at the get-go. Well, if it's vastly more advanced than we are, then DNA sequencing, complete understanding of the molecular genesis of thought, so forth and so on, would be no problem for that level of technical sophistication. You would also like to think that ethics and good taste would keep pace with this evolutionary process. So to my mind, the idea of fleets of alien spacecraft filling the skies of Earth, that's as unsubtle as kicking down somebody's front door with an M1 tank to announce, we're here.
Ooh, think about the agenda that's happening right now, and us and people seeing things and government coming out with things. Is that really them?
I don't think you would do it that way. If you really wanted to study a Aboriginal race and you really had a hot technology, what you would do is you would study their social psychology and you would say, are there any chinks in the armor of their expectations about how reality behaves? Ooh. And you would discover, in studying us, this species intoxicates itself, and it has a curious attitude towards its intoxications. Anything goes. So if somebody drinks a pint of Stolichnaya and announces that they see pink elephants, we are all amused. We say, of course you do, you were drunk out of your mind. Isn't it obvious that an alien would hide its presence in an intoxication? That this is the non-invasive, tasteful, respectful way to have intercourse with another species. I was very interested in coming to this thing and studying the psychology of the group, and it was very fascinating to me that both of the speakers, where I listened to the whole thing, were very concerned to refute the psychological explanation, which I gather is the Antichrist around here. And as I understand it, somebody said to me, the first thing they said to me, I thought, my God, these people are on end. He said, I want you to know that this Jungian thing is bullshit. I said, okay, that's fine. However, this is like beating a dead horse. Has the news from quantum physics not reached the UFO community? Is it not now thoroughly assimilated that an observer is necessary for reality to exist at all? It's all psychological. There's no distinction. And so these people who have such enthusiasm for beryllium ships from Arcturus or wherever should be informed, you know, same. So now what is physics telling us? Saying, folks, hold your horses here. It turns out the cheerful world of billiard ball-like atoms winging their way through Newtonian space is in for serious revision. It turns out that these particles aren't even particles. They're waves. Well, no, not exactly. They're both. Well, what I actually meant to say was, and you discover the babble of mad people is what is coming out of the physics departments today. Science has collapsed. Its core has given way to contradiction. Carried far enough, the analysis of this stage will show you that it has no, quote, reality to it. Now this plays nicely right into my hands. Let's go back now to those drug-induced hallucinations. You know, I think every UFO investigator in the country, they have these forms when they come rushing out to your house when you report an 11-mile-long green cigars overhead. And the first question is, are you intoxicated? Do you have a history of taking drugs? What is your relationship to altered states? Most encounters with extraterrestrials take place in altered states. That's what altered states are. Reality is, you know, the tip of an iceberg of irrationality that we've managed to drag ourselves up onto for a few panting moments before we slip back into the sea of the unreal.
Ooh. All right, guys. So before we go further, I do want to share that my experience with the mushroom. When I first journeyed with it, when I took it very seriously, when I heard these words, I approached it like a scientist. I didn't believe anything. I didn't want to believe anything. I wanted to go experience it. And I wanted to experience it the right way. So I did my 5 dried grams. Actually, the first time I did it was 10 dried grams on an empty stomach. And what it did for me was show me all the stuff I was holding on to, how much trauma, how much ideologies, how many things were inside my mind that needed to be needed to be overcame. And it was a process of rebirth. It was a process of death. It was an anxiety that built up inside of me, deep in the core of my being. And I had to let that process work itself out. It was during this time where I heard a voice, a deep voice in the mushroom that felt like it was coming from my own mind, but it wasn't my own voice. It wasn't my own mind. It was something else that was explaining to me, giving me the answers that I was looking for, teaching me, showing me what I needed to see, helping me hear what I needed to hear, and letting me feel what I needed to feel. And this voice told me that I wasn't ready to receive what I came to it for, that I was ignorant and I needed to be slowly awakened and I needed to die to my old self to open up the channels, to open up the ability to really receive what this thing was. The mushroom reaches people in different ways. No matter what you're going through, you have to understand that it's very intelligent. When you take it, it takes you. It is learning you. And once you put it in your system, it is identifying how you think. What are your deepest thoughts? What's your biggest fears? What happened? What are you most scared of? What's your deepest, darkest secrets? And when you take this thing and you do it right, not at piddling doses, but at the right dosage, you see that you have been in the way and that your ego thinks it knows. But your ego needs to be demolished so something else can come in. And this other thing that's waiting to make contact is the very thing that can set us free. When you look at the world today and you look at how everything is, when you really see, you'll awaken to the possibility that man is not intelligent enough to trap man the way it has. The levels of society, the programming, the mind unable to escape itself. This invisible infrastructure is something that the mushroom was sent here to demolish. And that's the key. It was sent here. But what sent the spores? What sent the spores?
And Vanessa followed me back to the forest, grumbling a good part of the way. When we had gone slightly past the place where I had parted from Dennis, we came upon something which could not at first be fitted into any set of expectations. This was Dennis' ruana and shirt, discarded in the middle of the path. Next came a pair of pants, and then further on 2 sweat socks. And, though I was to learn this only later, his glasses and his boots had also been hurled.
Okay, so this is coming from the True Hallucinations movie, and what he's explaining is a trip that he's having. And it was with his brother and a few friends. They were on this traveling adventure. And he's explaining how he's finding like his brother's clothes and just random stuff on this path.
Rolled away. Following this trail of cast-off garments led us back to the hut in the forest. There we found Ev and Dennis, both naked and sitting on the floor of the hut, discussing and doing the Ask Dennis meditation. With the comment that you cannot receive a proper initiation unless you are naked, Dennis insisted that we take off our clothes. Vanessa peeled and Dave and I followed her example. The presence of the mushroom was there, and it seemed to be saying, "Take off your clothes. Throw everything away. Everything is breaking. All objects are no good to you now. Throw everything away. You do not need it anymore." We all looked at each other, glossy pubic hair and secret genitals now in the sunshine. I rolled a joint then. We sat in a circle and smoked. We told Dave and Vanessa about the teaching and urged them to try it with varying degrees of success, since a voice in the head is a very subjective thing. If one has it, there is no doubt. If one does not have it, it seems a very murky thing. Everything was very amicable, except that Dennis was showing a tendency to talk right through other people's comments, as if they were not present. It was as though he were on a different time track from the rest of us, since we really seemed unable to realize that someone else was talking. We thought that it was logical to untie our hammocks from the house and take nothing but our hammocks and go naked into the jungle. Tie the hammocks in a tree, and then get into these hammocks. We would then explore the mode, because clearly you could do more than ask or answer questions. The door was standing open. God alone knew what one could do. I asked the thing in my mind what should be done, and had received instruction that we should visually meditate on our lives, and starting from the present, trace back through our entire life, encountering and setting things right with every sentient creature that we had ever wronged. When we reached the end of this process, we would leave our bodies and be somehow free in the dimension of absolute freedom that seemed so near. Lying in our hammocks, we set out to meditate our way to hyperspace. I could see myself at La Chorrera, then going down the trail to El Encanto, up the river to Leguizamo and back to Bogota, back to Canada, and at each point I would meet the people that I had lived my life with, and I would say, "We got it. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't offend you too much back there in 3D. It's all over now. It's all over." I could see people. Immediately I reached out for all of them. I seemed to be able to reach them. "We're in the Amazon," I explained to each, "and now we're going home, or someplace." The vision had an utterly bizarre quality. Tears welled up behind my closed eyelids. It was very peculiar. The voice of the teacher spoke in my head. "You found it. This is it. It's all over now. There is no more. Within a few hours, the superstructure of human civilization is going to collapse, and your species is going to go to Jupiter and then to the stars. A day of high adventure dawns for man at last."
Yeah, that's very funny. So yeah, if you learn to listen to the voice of the mushroom whenever you go through your psychedelic experience, what you'll find is that it speaks. And if you listen, it'll take you deeper and deeper into its process. And that process is your own healing. That process is your own evolution, your own awakening. And unless you're ready to listen to it, you're not ready to break through. And doing the work that I've done in working with helping people break through and set the stage for this experience, there's not many who can hear the voice. And if you hear the voice, that's a blessing. And if you hear the voice, I pray that you listen. And there's an ingredient inside the infamous magic of the mushroom that is actually psilocybin. And I want to explain and go into what this is, about what makes the mushroom magical, and that is this little sacred ingredient, or tryptamine, or alkaloid, if you will. So psilocybin, also known as 4-PO-DMT, that's something very interesting to think about, because people like to put psychedelics in hierarchies, right? You'll have people that get caught in this plant medicine trap of looking for the answer and the next experience, and to, keep trying new things. But really what I found is that if you understand the mushroom, if you understand how deep this thing goes, if you hear the voice, it never stops. And it becomes exactly that, your teacher. There's a teacher, and this is the great teacher. And those who know, know, and those who don't. But what makes the teacher teach and gain access to our own minds is exactly this right here, this structure, which is a naturally occurring tryptamine alkaloid and found in more than 200 species of mushrooms with hallucinogenic and serotonergic effects. These effects include euphoria, changes in perception, a feeling, distorted sense of time via brain desynchronization, and a perceived spiritual experience. Perceived spiritual experiences. This comes from Wikipedia. Psilocybin is the compound in itself is biologically inactive but quickly converted by the body to psilocin. Our bodies have been dormant. Our brains have been inactive, and they're waiting to receive this chemical. Once you break it down and you see that we are naturally able to break this down, and that this is a natural substance that has been used for millennia to be able to give people connection to the logos and to experience what this thing actually is. What is the voice? And once you hear it, and once you start asking the right questions, it will answer as deep as you ask. It really depends on your level of conscious awareness. So I do want to say this before I move on, that imagery in cave paintings and, rock formations, cave paintings and rock art of modern-day Algeria and Spain suggests that human use of these magic mushrooms predates recorded history. All right, this goes back before our even record of history. And my question to you is, why has the truth of this not been expressed? Why is there a whole psychedelic therapy and a whole movement that is controlling who has access and who can fully experience this and who has the ability to facilitate it. The power of the mushroom is set and setting. So whatever your mind is open to is what you can have the potential to experience. And if you close up the mind beforehand, you literally set the guardrails on what can be experienced. And this is why it's important to recognize the charlatans. And as someone who experiences the voice and gets deep in contact with that and channels with it and has built a relationship to become it, you can clearly see through the people who just want to take a course to facilitate an experience. And that's not what this is. You can't choose yourself for the mushroom. The mushroom will choose you. And if you hear the voice, you're a chosen one. So let's keep going.
Well, psilocybin can be contrasted to any compound. It's different from all other compounds, including all other psychedelics. Psilocybin is very interesting and should be studied more deeply because it does things that are quite miraculous, that are very close to the surface. In other words, ordinary scientific methods of research, psychedelics, of all the psychedelics, with the possible exception of DMT, which is a whole special case, psilocybin is the most easily capable of generating visions. And that fascinated me. I took a lot of LSD, and I was really hyped for LSD. I had read, I was waiting, I was fully informed and prepared by the time I got to my first LSD trip, and I was somewhat puzzled by it. It did completely take me apart, and I thought many strange things and had many insights, but I had thought that it would be like the Havelock Ellis description, the ruined cities dripping with jewels, the vast jungles, the strange machinery, all that. Later I discovered that by smoking good Bombay black hash on LSD, you can sort of coax that into existence. But an easier thing is psilocybin. Psilocybin just causes you to hallucinate furiously. And I don't understand how people can take this so casually. I mean, maybe we need to talk about the taxonomy of hallucination. When I say hallucination, I'm not talking about the walls breathing or something like that. I'm not even talking about those little things that look like fans that go that are on, like, that cover everything like wallpaper, you know, when you open your eyes. I mean, those are hallucinations of some sort. I think they're called hypnagogia or eidetic phosphenes or something, but that's all in the visual pathway. That's about the eye. What I'm interested in at that point is not the eye, but the mind. And on psilocybin, my God, you know, red velvet draperies are raised to an enormous organ tone, and then you just sail off into the most grandiose and extravagant architectonic unfoldment. I mean, there are no words for it. You don't know whether you're in a cyber remake of Chartres Cathedral, or you're inside somebody's television set, or you're walking around inside some kind of organism from Arcturus, or what is going on. And after a good psilocybin trip, you know, your eyes are like bugging out of your head. I mean, you have spent, it's like going to Upper Madison Avenue with money in your pocket. You have just been looking and looking and looking for hours and hours. And this stuff, I before I got, or as I was getting into all this, my interest was Jungian psychology and art history. The fields which set you up for being able to recognize motifs, trace them through time, and understand how the various art movements of whatever centuries you're looking at fit together, and plus a deep faith in the archetypal foundations of human imagery and so forth. None of that was there. It was, as I said, a Niagara of alien beauty.
When you take psilocybin, it takes you. And if you're able to listen, it will help you see.
I read Carl Jung very early, before the Jungians really got a hold of him and ruined it. And what Jung is saying about conceiving your life as a quest is absolutely true. Psyche is some kind of semi-malleable medium. And if you set yourself up as a loser, if you image yourself as a loser, you will be a loser, and so forth. This is not big news. But what's big news is that if you set your life up as a quest, you will actually find something transcendental and unimaginable. I mean, I am living proof of this because I set my life up as a quest for a perverse reason, to prove that there was no mystery. In other words, to debunk it, to say, I will follow the ancient formulae and show that it's baloney by doing it perfectly and achieving nothing. That's the kind of guy I am. However,
like I said, this is the best way to approach the mushroom. Go into it like a scientist. Go into it on your quest to figure out what it is, and don't assume what it is. Let it show you, because it may just blow your mind.
I mean, I've met people who say, I'm psychedelic, I know exactly what you're talking about, blah, blah. You say, oh, well, what's your drug history? And you say, well, I took MDMA twice. You say, look, just because you've had a glass of cold water doesn't mean you are now ready to be food editor for the La Rue Gastronomique, my friend. I mean, there's more to it than that, believe me.
Mushrooms are my thing. I mean, they enlightened me, they straightened me out, they love me. But the way to do mushrooms is the very first move, if you're interested in mushrooms, is, for God's sake, buy a scale.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Buy a scale. I mean, you wouldn't think that this would be considered such an exotic suggestion to people who are going to put their bodies and minds on the line, because people don't take enough. People do not take enough mushrooms.
And that's where sitters and people like myself come into play, so you can feel safe enough and have the courage to go to the deepest aspects, to go to the deepest places with this medicine. Because if you don't, you're going to miss the mark. And like people in high school where they do a little bit and they say they done mushrooms and, oh, that was so high school, that was so this. They miss the mark. And then they perpetuate a story, a dogma that's not real, because they lacked the insight and the ability to do it the right way the first time.
They take pissant amounts and then they claim that they're initiates. You must take a measured 5 dried grams on an empty stomach. Measured. And when you see what that is, you'll realize that, you weren't even camped in the atrium, you were camped in the driveway. Mushrooms, in some ways, I mean, DMT is the most terrifying and astonishing thing in the universe, but it's very hard to know what to do with it. psilocybin is your friend. It wants to teach. It will take you by the hand and forgive you and lead you
Yes.
and be with you.
Yes.
And it speaks.
Yes.
This is the amazing thing. And you're hearing this from, somebody who graduated from Heidegger and F.H. Bradley. It speaks.
Yep.
No other psychedelic does that, in my experience. Occasionally, a phrase will pop into your head on another substance that is like a gift, an aphorism. But I mean, psilocybin raves. It raves. And it has positions. I mean, you may not like psilocybin as a person, because it is not, the astonishing thing about the psilocybin entity, to my mind, and I get good confirmation of this, is it is not very earthly. I mean, it wants to show you machines the size of Manhattan in orbit around alien stars. It wants to talk about the sweep through of the da-da-da-da, which happened before the Earth cooled, and it, has seen the empires of the Rull out at the rim and all the rest of it. And it's very puzzling, this cosmic galactarian tone, because then you switch over to ayahuasca, which is literally just a twist of the molecule, just the tiniest tweaking of the molecule, and suddenly it's about childbirth, rivers, the land, the feminine, looking inside your body, curing diseases, feeling, telepathy, communication. It could hardly be more different, and yet chemically these things are like two sides of the same coin.
Yes, first come the dancing mice, the little candies, the colored grids, and so forth and so on. But what eventually happens quickly, like 10 minutes later, is there is an entity in the trance, in the vision. There is a mind there waiting that speaks good English and invites you up into its room. What it is it's a voice in the head that people strove to attain for 1,000 years. This was the sine qua non of intellectual accomplishment in the Greco-Roman world, and the Logos told you the right way to live.
Wow.
And this is sort of what you get with psilocybin. You get a voice that can confound you with the depth and brilliance of its answers. This is what you want. And I've had over and over the experience of showing somebody what 5 grams is, and they're appalled. They say, my God, you can't be serious. I mean, I take a fifth that much, a fourth that much. Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's why you don't have elves in the attic and bats in the belfry like I do.
A lot of people have said you're a hallucination nut. You're obsessed with hallucination. I freely admit it. But I will defend my obsession with vision. I think the world wants to be seen. I think Blake was right that the divine imagination is something beheld. And for me, the visions are the proof that this is not my mind. And the visions are the proof that this is not simply chemical chaos in the nervous system. And when we communicate with each other and understand each other, we instinctively reach for visual metaphors. I see what you mean. Look here, fella. She painted a picture. His words were so beautiful. It means that we really associate meaning with seeing something.
Seeing is believing. Seeing is believing.
The reason I'm into all this is because I'm into what's weird I always have been. I mean, I've always loved the bizarre, the outre, the stuff of the edge. And, you know, when I got to psychedelics, I thought I'd hit the main vein of sprung verse or
Same with me.
something. I mean, that's what you like, then this is your answer. You see, what the psychedelic is going to do is it's going to destroy your whole world, your whole conception of your world. And some people, that's tremendously liberating. They say, wonderful, at last I'm free of it. Other people say, my God, now I'm hopelessly mad. I have nothing left to cling to. I've really done it this time. And so that's almost an aesthetic judgment. Whether you like watching your world shredded before your eyes and made into nonsense, if that makes you feel liberated and secure, then you can sign up for this carnival. If that alarms you, I think best to stick to the tried and true. It's not for people of weak psychic constitution. And what shamanism is about is, I mean, I know someone who says of the mushrooms, my goal with taking mushrooms is always to be able to stand more.
Ooh.
And they don't mean higher doses, they mean more of what it reveals.
Right.
And I feel like that. I mean, the mushroom speaks. I didn't really stress this in my talk, but the strange, the confounding fact about these mushrooms is that they speak you in plain English. And this is completely unexpected. How can such a thing be? I mean, one is dumbfounded in the presence of this. And yet, by being able to have an I-thou relationship to this thing, you open up yourself to what is essentially a magical dimension, a dimension of allyship with this thing. I come to this completely as a rationalist. I mean, I am more scientist, more rationalist than anything else. I am very uncomfortable with my position in the New Age. I hate all that stuff. The quartz crystal suppositories and the channeling of dead Egyptians and all this horrible stuff which goes on. I mean, it's just an affront to the thinking mind. But when I encountered these psychedelics, I said, my God, skepticism is the proper path. And I believe this. It's not to believe, it's to test.
Yes.
I said to the mushroom once, why us? Meaning my brother and me. Why us? And it said, because you don't believe in anything. You know, you're not a believer. And so it's a real thing. It's a real mystery. It will not yield to reason. It's a tremendously well-kept secret. I always like, my favorite story in the gospel is the story of Thomas the Doubter. Because remember, he wasn't present when Christ came to the upper room the first time after the crucifixion. And so then Thomas came a couple of days later, and the apostles said to him, they said, the Master was here. He was here. And he said, you guys have been smoking too much of these little brown cigarettes from Lebanon. We saw him crucified. He wasn't here. Well, so then Christ came a second time, and Thomas was present. And he said, unless I put my hand into the wound, I will not believe it. And so then Christ came the second time, and he said to Thomas, he said, Thomas, come forward. He said, put your hand into the wound. And then he did. And my interpretation of that
gospel story is that alone of all the apostles, it was Thomas the doubter who touched the resurrection body.
Ooh.
Because he was the only one who had his shit together enough to doubt.
Yes.
And so if you doubt, they will actually let you put your hand into the wound. If you don't doubt, they will give you any kind of crap and send you happily along your way. So the best attitude towards these things, and it gets rid of the phonies, you know, the T-locks of this world, but it doesn't get rid of the real stuff, because the real stuff is real.
The truth does not require your belief.
No.
The truth is real. You can beat it on the ground. You can rip it apart. You can look inside it. Nobody needs to guard the truth from inspection. Nobody needs to tell you that, you know, you can't look behind the stage. And so my motivation is to try to, number one, bring people to the realization that the spiritual path, if you want to think of it that way,
Let's go.
that is a real thing, and it will carry you to the real thing. All spiritual disciplines that I know, except for psychedelics, put a great deal of emphasis on putting the pedal to the metal. Push, 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 you know, meditate, make offerings, do mantrayana, do pranayama, do puja, push, push, push.
Yeah.
With psychedelics, suddenly there's a very deep interest in, and where are the brakes? You see? You're no longer pushing. Once you get to the psychedelics, seeking is an attitude which ill becomes you. You have found it.
Yes.
You have found it. Now, what in the hell are you going to do with it?
Yes.
And this is a great dilemma for anyone who goes into this. I mean, I am, as I see myself, I'm a preacher in the marketplace. But I know, and I'm sure most of you know, that I could walk out of here, you could walk out of here, and you could go as far as your courage would carry you. There is no barrier. There are no more barriers. You can go as far as your fucking courage will carry you. And at that point, you have to ask the question, you know, do I want to be the mad monk of Cold Mountain? Do I want the villagers down in the valley to say, oh yes, we see him occasionally up in the mist, naked, flying with the eagles, because you can be that person. You know, you don't have to go back to your job as ad exec, stockbroker, or whatever it is. And so we stand on the edge of being able to leave history. This is what I stand for. I stand for the plants. The plants have souls. They carry the morphogenetic field of thousands of years. When you take psilocybin, it takes you.
Preach.
You are participating in all the trips that it ever induced in anyone. And this is a tremendously stable field of experiences. When you take a drug fresh out of the laboratory, it has no soul, it has no story,
Right.
it has no direction.
Right.
It's a product of the demon artifice of man.
Yes.
And I prefer to put my hand in the large hand of the goddess and
Yes.
make my way into this dimension under the aegis of the sanctioned vegetables that for millennia have always been there to fling open the doorways to vistas of pleasure and delight that would make you turn up your nose at the best Beverly Hills
Yes.
has to offer.
Yes.
Believe
Yes.
me. The inner riches
Yes.
are incomparable. And this is how we recover our dignity.
Yes.
By not being whores to mammon and pursuing all of this trash that they're peddling to us, and insist instead on the maximizing of human values, human emotion, and human community.
I got the chills from that. And this is the religion of the mushroom. The mushroom speaks, and when you take it, it takes you. And you must give yourself up to it. You must be willing to sacrifice yourself, because when you do, you become a vessel for the larger whole. You step into who you are. You remember who you are. It teaches you. It speaks. It's so much deeper than just healing trauma so you can do better at work. This goes so deep. And you're a vessel. And you're either going to be used and utilized for one side of the fight, or you're going to sacrifice yourself and wake up and understand what this all is. Open yourself up to it. And be the light.
The key to religion, the key to find God is intelligence. It's not obedience. It's not submission. It's not falling on your knees. What's wrong with you falling on your knees? Do you worship a God that wants you on your knees like slaves? The new religions are going to glorify intelligence, because God wants us to be intelligent. Because the smarter we are, the more we'll understand her handiwork and the glories of the galaxies that she's built. So definitely, the new religion is going to be a religion of intelligence. If you increase your intelligence, you're sexier. If you increase your intelligence, you're more romantic. If you increase your intelligence, you're more religious, because obviously the smarter you are, the more you want to know exactly who did it,
Yes.
who created us,
Yes.
and how she wants us to evolve.
Yep.
People are much smarter today. The very fact that I'm saying these things on a regional television is a sign of sophistication and growth. People couldn't say this 10 years ago, and people are listening. A third of the people that listen to this broadcast are going to think it over, and are going to take some steps in self-actualization.
Yes. Yes. So how can this be tied to religion?
So begins the nomadic period of the early Israelites in the land of Midian. The Israelites are depicted in the Bible as living in tents, herding cattle, hunting fowl, and having little to no access to agriculture. According to the census of Numbers, adult men of the Israelites were said to number 63,550. This number is excluding the women, children, and other slaves.
Here, let's see if we're having some problem with it.
Populations who would have.
So what this is getting into, and it's a great watch. I'm checking this out on internetarchive.org, and it's called The Psychedelic Origins of the Abrahamic Faiths. Very, very interesting, and it speaks on the esoteric term mana. Mana is named in the Old Testament many a times, and this dude did a fabulous job of depicting the history, the teachings, and really raising question on what this all can be and what is the sacred connection. So I just want to play this to give you a little background on what mana is, essentially, and we'll take it a little deeper from there. I want to play for me, but I just explained it to you, so let's just go right into the mystery schools. Now, when it comes to the mystery schools, man, this voice, what Terence was explaining, that people have been trying to get in contact with for millennia, and this is what the sacred logos is. The mystery schools, the secret societies, the ones that know and that keep this as a secret and create the paradigm and dogmas for us to stay under and not realize it. This is the logos that has been tapped into.
you all probably.
All right, internet's not working that good right now. So that's all right. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that.
Somehow, part of the package of being a living, thinking being is that you get a universe inside of you. You know, you get a galaxy-sized object inside you that you can access. And there are the mountains, the rivers, the jungles, the dynastic families, the ruins, the planets, the works of art, the poetry, the sciences, the magics of millions upon millions upon millions of worlds. And this is apparently who we each are. We're a little bit of eternity sticking into three-dimensional space and for some reason occupying time in a monkey body. But when you turn your eyes then inward, you discover the birthright, the existential facts out of which this particular existence emerged. And it's a great secret and a great comfort, because it means, you know, mystery didn't die with the fall of Arthur or the fall of Atlantis or the fall of anything. Mystery is alive in the moment, in the here and now. It just simply lies on the other side of a barrier of courage.
We are the hands of Mother Nature. There is no seam between us and the will of the planet. We are the technological catalyst species that is going to carry DNA on this planet out into the universe. Not human DNA, all DNA. And long after this planet has collapsed into its star or been absorbed in the expanding shell of a nova, the life that began here, all the life that began here, will be spread throughout the universe. My vision is, I think, biological, not cultural. And I even believe, you know, that the mushroom is you can view the mushroom as the catalyst for this process. That 100,000 years ago there were only monkeys and the mushroom. And human history is a genetic experiment by an extraterrestrial resident in the environment.
And I don't know whether the mushroom is a radio or the extraterrestrial itself. When I said this morning that if you understand the DNA as a species, you will take control of your form, I always have the notion that the mushroom has done this. And that's why it touches matter so very lightly. I mean, the mushroom is a very thinly spread mycelial network through a field or a meadow somewhere. The carpophore, what we call the mushroom, is an appurtenance to the sexual process. As Ralph Abraham said one time, it's for sex, thrills, and sunbathing. And that's all it's for. The mushroom is perfectly able to propagate itself by vegetatively growing through the soil. But the mushroom, if we believe it is an entity, it lives in its own imagination. It has gotten so rid of a physical form that all it is a little bit of white stuff in the soil and a raging trip in an unknown dimension, which you can only slice into by allowing it to translocate into your nervous system. And then it continues to give off its experience of itself, which is an immersion in pure imagination. You know, for it, the thought is the fact of the matter. It's as though the mushroom were made of pure light.
And if you eat the mushroom and you listen, you become the light. You become the light. So let's go back here and just give this a little test.
Christianity isn't always a headache for the historian because it seems so different from what went before. If in fact it can be seen as part of a continuing secret tradition which went on and through the Old Testament stories and some of these old myths and legends that you get in the Old Testament, with roots going right back into ancient Sumer of the 4th century, 4th millennium, and perhaps much earlier than that. The thing was becoming a nicely complete picture.
So this is a dude who did a bunch of research to basically identify the mushroom to him was Christ. And he wrote a book called, we'll see right here. I think it's The Sacred Blood of the Mushroom or something of the sort. And that's exactly what he put forward.
And that's really what the sacred mushroom was about.
Next question is perhaps what is really taught in the New Testament?
All right. Stick with me, guys. Let's hear Terence McKenna talk about these mystery schools and how the mushroom may be related.
No, Eleusis was of ancient Athens, and they celebrated the greatest of the Greek mysteries there. They celebrated twice yearly festival. In the spring, they would celebrate the lesser.
That's all right. That's all right. If it doesn't want to play, it doesn't want to play. That's okay. Let's see if this one will play. That don't want to play either. Let's just hear. let's see if this one will play.
Reading.
You take them enough and you let yourself out of the way. You actually embody it. You become it. You become the voice of it. You can become the mushroom. And when you do, you speak for it. And a lot of the text that came out of this man's mouth was coming from the mushroom. And I highly recommend you guys check this out. I'm not going to play any more of it. Go check out the Psychedelic Origins of the Abrahamic Faiths. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can watch it. It's a 4-hour and 20-minute movie. And trust me, I sent it to some of my closest friends who experienced deep mushroom ceremonies with me. And they didn't even have the attention span or the awareness to just finish it, just to experience and watch it. If you guys are called to this message, if you guys are called to really figure out what this mushroom is and how deep it has penetrated our society, watch the video in the links, in the resources below, and watch the whole thing. Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, don't be lazy with it.
The Stropharia. At the beginning of that little book, I introduced what we had personally learned about the world of the mushroom. The mushroom speaks, and our opinions rest upon what it tells eloquently of itself in the cool night of the mind. I am old, older than thought in your species, which is itself 50 times older than your history.
And this is Terence McKenna consuming the mushroom and speaking from its awareness. Enjoy.
Though I have been on Earth for ages, I am from the stars. My home is no one planet, for many worlds scattered through the shining disk of the galaxy have conditions which allow my spores an opportunity for life. The mushroom which you see is the part of my body given to sex thrills and sunbathing. My true body is a fine network of fibers growing through the soil. These networks may cover acres and may have far more connections than the number in a human brain. My mycelial network is nearly immortal. Only the sudden toxification of a planet or the explosion of its parent star can wipe me out. By means impossible to explain because of certain misconceptions in your model of reality, all my mycelial networks in the galaxy are in hyperlight communication across space and time. The mycelial body is as fragile as a spider's web, but the collective hypermind and memory is a vast historical archive of the career of evolving intelligence on many worlds in our spiral star swarm. Space, you see, is a vast ocean to those hardy life forms that have the ability to reproduce from spores, for spores are covered with the hardest organic substance known. Across the eons of time and space drift many spore-bearing life forms, in suspended animation for millions of years until contact is made with a suitable environment.
So beautiful.
Few such species are minded. Only myself and my recently evolved near relatives have achieved the hypercommunication mode and memory capacity that makes us leading members of the community of galactic intelligence. How the hypercommunication mode operates is a secret that will not be given lightly to humanity, but the means should be obvious. It is the occurrence of psilocybin and psilocin in the biosynthetic pathways of my living body that opens for me and my symbiotes the vision screens to many worlds. You as an individual and mankind as a species are on the brink of the formation of a symbiotic relationship with my genetic material that will eventually carry humanity and Earth into the galactic mainstream of the higher civilizations. Since it is not easy for you to recognize other varieties of intelligence around you, your most advanced theories of politics and society have advanced only as far as the notion of collectivism. But beyond the cohesion of the members of the species into a single social organism, there lie richer and even more baroque evolutionary possibilities. Symbiosis is one of these. Symbiosis is a relation of mutual dependence and positive benefits for both of the species involved. Symbiotic relationships between myself and civilized forms of higher animals have been established many times and in many places throughout the long ages of my development. These relationships have been mutually useful. Within my memory is the knowledge of hyperlight drive ships and how to build them. I will trade this knowledge for a free ticket to new worlds around suns less forsaken and nearer galaxy center. To secure an eternal existence down the long river of cosmic arswarm are heir to.
หัวเว่ยว่าฟิสิกส์และหัวเว่ย
All right. We're coming here to the end, man. All right, I'm telling you guys, thank you for joining me for this live stream. Before we end this off, I got one more thing to play for you guys. The mushroom speaks. What are the main takeaways? The mushroom speaks. To approach it like a scientist, that means to approach it like a skeptic, right? This is great information. All of it is hocus pocus until you see it for yourself. And I'm telling you, if you do it correctly, if you go into this deeply with a mind fertile, ready to dissolve yourself, ready to experience whatever you have to experience, hear what you have to hear, see what you have to see, feel what you need to feel, it will demolish you. And it just may speak. And if it speaks, that means you are ready to listen. And if you have the ability to listen to it, take the advice, listen to what it's saying, and do it. And before approaching it again and again and again, finish what it tells you. That was my path. When the mushroom spoke to me, it told me what to do, and I listened. And then when I went back to it, I knew I was worthy because I listened. I completed the mission, and then it said, "You're ready to grow me." And then I listened. I found a way to do that, and then I came back to it, and then it told me how to consume it again. And then when I did that, I finally made contact to what this is on the other side. Making contact with the voice. Not just the voice, but it saw me as worthy of revealing itself. And in that moment, I saw something studying back at me. I knew what it was. It was answering my questions right away. And I had the deepest questions for it, and it gave me even deeper answers. So if this mystery calls you, do it the right way and it will never be a mystery. You'll awaken to what this really is. And you'll find that this isn't just for an experience. There's a reason why it's here. There's a reason why it's trying to communicate. There's a reason why it's waiting for you to listen. There's a reason, because there's something much bigger at work. There's something much bigger. This is the secret of the shaman, and this is the religion of the mushroom, which is no religion. And when you do the research, you'll find that many, mostly all, even all the Abrahamic faiths have stemmed from this very deep, profound experience. So again, if you guys are interested in this experience and you want to do it the right way and you want to feel safe, visit me at www.finallydetached.com. Me and my lovely partner, psychologist Elin, will make sure that you are taken care of, that you are in the right place at the right time, and I will make sure that you go deep enough on this sacred medicine so you can see what you need to see, feel what you need to feel, and hear what you need to hear. So then you can come back significantly changed. Feel exactly the same, but be aware. Have an awakening. And finally, remember.
But anyway, Dennett was saying, I want to get rid of magical matter in the brain. I just believe the brain is this and that and the other thing. I want to get rid of magical matter. Well, there was a quantum physicist there, Stefan Glashow of Harvard, and he said, well, I've got news for you, John. Quantum physics has turned matter into magical material. So now the whole program of saving reason has to be abandoned. The prosecution of the understanding of nature has pushed us to the point where we see that matter itself exceeds rational apprehendability.
So does that mean giving up codifying stuff? I mean, is that...
It gives up the idea, it means giving up the idea of closure.
Yeah.
That there's not
no conclusions.
No conclusions. I was just at a conference where I met all these people from Ecuador, and there was an anthropologist there. Some of you may know this guy, Sparrow Miller, and he lives with the Warani in Ecuador. And he told me, he said, the amazing thing about the Warani is that they don't think anything makes sense. That's their official explanation of the universe, is that nothing makes sense.
That's true to me.
And so they are completely at home with that. Consequently, their contribution to epistemology has been vanishingly small. On the other hand, they have a very good time and are quite comfortable with their wives, children,
in other words,
animals.
they don't understand anything.
Why should we understand? Look at us. We wear penis sheaths and paint ourselves blue. You're asking us?
It's not at all clear that we're mapping a generalizable reality. It may be that it's just so huge in there that never do we pass through the same matrix twice. Well, that means you can give up on closure. You can give up on any theory that will ever give you very much of a more than provisional handle on what's going on. And I think this is probably a good step to take, to open ourselves to the freedom that lies beyond culture. Culture is a kind of prison.
It is.
And the only way that we know to get beyond it is to dissolve its boundaries. Now, you can do that with psychedelics, and then you really explore the baseline of being, or you can dissolve it with travel. But then you dissolve your own cultural programming only to discover you've fitted yourself into somebody else's cultural programming. And this, while, definitely educational, is like a psychedelic drug I'm not that fond of.
I do a lot of traveling, but it's not the same thing as replacing space and time with some kind of alternative. That comes from, doing the hard work on 5 grams in silent darkness. And really what you see, I think, is the morphogenetic field, the invisible world that holds everything together, the knit of it all, not the knit of matter and light, but the knit of casuistry, of intentionality, of caring, of hope, of dream, of thought. And that all is there, but it's been hidden from us for centuries because of the exorcism of the spirit that took place in order to allow science to do business. And that, momentous and ill-considered choice then has made us the inheritors of a tradition of existential emptiness, really. But that has impelled us to go back to the jungles and to recover this thing. It's all of a piece, you see. I mean, these people in the Amazon and whatnot were keeping this cultural flame burning. But these cultures are now all dead. They are either dead or in a state of advanced, suspended animation. It's a very strange enterprise. I mean, it's hard to put it across because the thing is, it's real, and we're in the effort, in the habit of thinking that the mind can move unobstructed from one edge of the universe to the other, that there are no secrets. But actually there are secrets. At least these are secrets, and hard to tell. I mean, I tell them, and you hear them, and we seem to have been allowed a cosmic dispensation. But why that is very hard for me to understand. I would have thought that this would have been headline news 20,000 years ago, right up until the present. Instead, it's very tentative. Apparently, this is very threatening to us.
Yes.
We are not as eager to sail over the edge collectively as we think we are. So then it becomes the function of the shaman, the gadfly, the go-between, to carry information back and forth between these worlds. I'm convinced that if there were no shamanic pipeline, there would be no human life as we know it on this planet. I mean, there could be climaxed animal life. There is no need for this higher order linguistic style of self-reflection to come into being. It's that something is plotted, something is working itself out in us. We are the cells of a much larger body, and like the cells of our own body, it's very hard for us to glimpse the whole pattern, the whole what is happening, and yet we can sense that there is a purpose, and there is a pattern. Well, the way you connect the pattern with the lower level is by dissolving the boundaries of the ego and the self into this larger thing. And then it's found to be there, reflective on many levels. It doesn't require a mechanism. Everything is obvious. If things don't appear simple to us, I think it's because we haven't thought about it long enough. Well, so that's sort of a survey of some of this stuff. Thank you very much.
So I want to leave you guys with that. I want to thank you for joining this stream. Thank you for being curious. Thank you for raising the question. Thank you for being curious and called to walk the path. Because there's a great secret that's been kept from us. And it's not a secret that's being held away. It's right there for all of us to experience. And it takes the courage, the wanting, the yearning to remember, to recall, to feel, and to have this spiritual connection again with the Logos. We have lost it in this society, and I truly feel that is why the society is unhinged. We have lost the spiritual. We have lost the ability to tap in and know. And we have lost the belief that that even exists. We have replaced this beautiful plant medicine with a middleman. And that's why in the ancient days, my people, my ancestors, were crucified and shunned and pushed out. The church came to kill off all the shamans because the shamans were explaining that there is no middleman. The plants and the fungi, that beautiful kingdom, holds all the answers, and it's right here for all of us. But the system, the establishment came to put itself in between. And to this day, that is what's happening. That's why I created the Church of the Sacred Spore, so I can practice this medicine and teach it to others without being under the guidelines and rules of the establishment. Don't be tricked by the fads. This isn't about healing. This is about remembering and activating that spiritual essence, that true being, that inner shaman that you are. Because if you're with me right now, if you're hearing this, that's because it's in you. And it's ultimately going to be your decision and your call to walk the path or not. And I will tell you, the path may be treacherous, but there are those who are walked before. And it's extremely rewarding because you find it's the only path that has true meaning. Ladies and gentlemen, awaken to the power that you are. You must remember there is something inside you that no one can take away. It has no name, no face, no beginning, and no end. It is not your story, your trauma, your fears, or even your greatest triumphs. It is the eternal, the divine essence flowing through all that lives, and it lives within you. Right now, as your eyes trace these words, as your ears soak in this message, and your breath rises and falls, there is a silent force within you that has always been there. It's the same force that kept you breathing through your darkest nights. The same energy that whispered, "Keep going," when your spirit was shattered. The same sacred intelligence that beats your heart without your command. This is who you really are. You are not broken. You are breaking open. You were never meant to live small, suffocated by doubt or dimmed by the expectations of a world too afraid of your light. You are not here to show. You are not here to numb your intuition, silence your creativity, or walk a path that someone else carved for you. You are here to remember. Remember that you are made of stars and storms, that you carry galaxies in your nervous system and oceans in your emotions. You are not weak for feeling deeply. You are not lost for questioning everything. You are not behind for choosing a path that no one else understands. In fact, your sensitivity is your superpower. Your longing is your compass. Your questions are the cracks through which your true self is breaking through. Stop waiting for permission to become. Stop waiting for the world to validate what your soul already knows. You are divine. You are chosen. You are needed right now, not after your healing is complete. Not once you've got it all figured out. Not when you've checked all the boxes or achieved some imagined state of perfection. You are ready now, as you are, imperfect, wild, becoming. Your power is not something you earn, it's something you uncover. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the pain, beneath the false identities you inherited just to survive. There is a wild, ancient fire, and it's calling you home. You didn't come here to play it safe. You came here to wake up. Wake up to the magic in your blood. Wake up to the voice that's been silenced. Wake up to the passion you buried to fit in. Wake up to the frequency of your own truth. The time of hiding is over. You are not made to conform. You were made to create. You were not made to obey. You were made to remember. Remember that you are life itself, flowing, evolving, eternal. That you are the miracle you've been waiting for. That no one else is coming to save you, because you are the one you've been praying for all along. This isn't about ego. This is about essence. It's about peeling back layers until what's left is the raw, radiant truth of your being. The part of you that knows how to love without fear, how to rise without apology, how to lead with your heart and burn with purpose. The eternal is not something far away. It's not a god in the sky or a concept in a book. It's the breath in your lungs, the stillness in your spine, the rhythm of your heart when you're fully alive. And once you tap into this truth, once you feel the pulse of the universe inside your own body, you will never forget again. Nope. Not while you're here in this realm. Nope. Remember, you are the medicine. You are the healer. You are the revolution. Yes. Don't let this world convince you otherwise. Don't let the past bind you to versions of yourself you've outgrown. Don't let fear masquerade as logic and steal your birthright. Don't let the opinions of others drown out your own inner knowing. Remember, you are powerful beyond measure. You are sacred beyond belief. You are divine intelligence made flesh. And you are here right now to wake others up simply by being who you truly are. When you walk with purpose, others remember their own. When you speak your truth, others find their voice. When you heal your wounds, you ripple healing into the field around you. This is how we rise, not by force, but by frequency. Not by preaching, but by embodying. You don't need to explain your light. You just need to let it shine. You don't need to convince anyone of your path. You just need to walk it with devotion. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to say yes to your becoming. Say yes to your own soul. Say yes to the whispers of your intuition. Say yes to the vision that only you can see. Remember, you don't need to be fearless. You just need to keep going. Every time you get back up, you teach the world that it's possible to rise. Every time you choose your truth over your conditioning, you ignite a revolution. And every time you choose love over fear, presence over performance, truth over silence, you shift the timeline of humanity. This is not a metaphor. That is your role in this grand unfolding. You are not random. You are not accidental. You are not too much, too intense, too sensitive, or too late. You are exactly who you need to be at exactly the right time, with exactly the right experiences to awaken what this world is so desperately crying out for. Truth. Remember, you are the channel. You are the storm and the stillness. You are the fire and the peace. You are the divine in human form, and it's time to live like it. So take a deep breath. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Feel the cosmos in your veins. And remember, you are the power. You are the flow. You are the miracle. Now go out there and live it.